And certainly when disasters like this occur, the aftershocks, emotional, financial, even political, are felt around the world. We live, after all, in a time when so much is interconnected. The world is changing. Or is it? When it comes to those who are our friends and those who are our potential enemies, there are some top officials in this country who like to highlight, how the landscape has changed, while others, their rhetoric seems to harken back to Cold War times. Take a look.
Americans ranked Russia as one of the top 5 countries threatening American security 2 years ago. This year, only 2% of the entire American population say they view Russia as a threat. All this leads to one very important conclusion in the mind of one vice president that I think is now beyond dispute. The reset is working for all of us, working for Russia.
Certainly, the Russians have still have a very formidable nuclear arsenal, even which does pose, potentially a mortal threat to us. I don't think they have the intent to do that. Certainly, China is growing in its military capabilities. It has a full array of whether conventional or strategic forces that they are building. So they too pose potentially, from a capability standpoint, a threat to us as a mortal threat.
All right, so just to recap, we've got Vice President Joe Biden in Russia. He's there to highlight the reset. Only 2% of people in the world, he says, or in America, actually consider Russia a threat. Well, then we have somebody in this administration, the top intelligence advisor, James Clapper, saying the 2 largest mortal threats, I think he said, China and Russia. Clapper later backtracked and said he was simply talking about capability when referring to Russia and China as a mortal threat. I want to talk about this, and to do so, I'm joined by Ivan Elan, Senior Fellow at the Independent Institute. Ivan, is this simply a statement of, weapons versus will, or do you think this was irresponsible for our top intelligence official to say?
Well, I think the problem that we have here is Cold War thinking. And you can talk about capabilities and intent, and we can do that, except that we have a double standard. In this country, there are other nuclear powers that can hit the United States as well.
Yeah,
there's India, Pakistan, France, and Britain, right? And Israel. Those countries could all conceivably in some way get a weapon here. Now, North Korea can't yet. But let's just take those countries. We don't think of them. They have the capability to do it, but we don't call them mortal threats, whereas China and Russia have the capabilities, but we call them mortal threats. And I think this is left over from the Cold War. We think that all those other countries couldn't possibly be intending any ill harm to the U.S., but Russia and China might.
Well, let's talk about this. I mean, you take a guy like James Clapper, certainly older than you and I. He grew up in a generation, a time when Russia was a threat, when he was conditioned to believe that, this Red Scare, this was a dangerous place, it was a dangerous time. Do you think that this is just some mentality that's left over? Do you think he sort of speaks for a generation that is still alive and making important decisions?
Yeah, I think so. It's generational. But I think there also in the foreign policy community here in the United States, there's still some residue among even younger analysts on Russia because of the Cold War, and to some extent China as well, because of the history of the Cold War. That's 40-some years of hostility, and it takes a while to get rid of that. And I think the Obama administration is moving in that direction. I think the intent of the Obama administration with the Arms Control Treaty and other improvements in U.S.-Russian relations, I think is moving the policy. But you still have people who talk this way, and he probably was talking about capabilities and intent, but the problem is his mindset is still in the old ways, and it's probably somewhat generational, yes.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. I mean, why do you suppose when asked, directly asked this question, I believe from Senator from West Virginia, Joe Manchin, why do you think that he didn't say Pakistan or India or Iran?
Well, I just think, that China and Russia traditionally in the Cold War were the enemies, and they also had the biggest nuclear arsenals. Of course, by his standard, the U.S. would be the biggest enemy of those two countries the biggest mortal threat, as Senator Levin pointed out to him, that if you take the standard the other way, you know, you have to deal with that. So if you're talking about capabilities, the United States has the most robust nuclear arsenal on the planet.
How do we change this? You know, how do you see in the future this changing? I mean, do we just wait for this, you know, the new generation to sort of take charge, or the new way of thinking where, you know, we grew up in a time where we have the START Treaty, where we have, you know, we're friendly with Russia? What needs to change for these statements not to be made anymore? Well,
I think time will help, and I think the more we can improve relations and the more we get past the Cold War, both in time and in mentality, you know, these people will retire and that sort of thing, and I think the situation will be improved. So I think, you know, as long as we improve relations and keep things moving in the right direction, this mentality will pass.